So why is it that so many high-achieving women experience anxiety? Well, that's what we're diving into today. Welcome back to the Movement, Mind, and Meaning podcast. I'm your host, Megan Nolan. And if you can relate to being really sensitive, empathetic, creative, passionate, big dreamer, visionary, going after it, starting new projects, maybe multi-passionate, you're into a lot of things, and also experiencing that chronic hum of anxiety that is kind of part of that driving force, because you're like, ooh, I don't want to feel that, I don't want to sink into that, and it causes you to keep pushing, keep going, keep setting bigger and higher goals for yourself to constantly kind of fill that need. Well, darling, welcome. Welcome, welcome. I see you. I love you. I am you in my own physical form. I can relate 1000%. That's what we're going to talk about today. Today's probably not going to be a longer episode because over here on Maui, it's wintertime and we're having a bit of a storm and the power keeps coming in and out. So I'm just going to get down to business. Okay? How's that? So let's talk about this hidden epidemic of ambitious, creative, passionate, intuitive women that are experiencing anxiety. And where does that come from, right? Where does that come from? And remember that anxiety is a response to stress. And for those of us that are in this world right now, which by nature life is and can be stressful, this constant desire for more, this high achieving aspect of our personality is an interesting one to consider, right? Because as important as it is for us to set these big goals and have these big dreams, being high achieving is kind of a double-edged sword in that it's important for you to set aspirations for yourself and to have intentions for yourself. But if we're always going after it from the more, better, faster, let's go mentality, then what's happening is that part of our personality that is constantly seeking gratification, constantly pushing us and causing us to continually, be driving after that next big goal or mountaintop. That's actually a protective pattern of the nervous system, right? And so for many of us that experience that drive to be hyper achieving or always looking for that next accomplishment in life, that's actually a protective pattern that maybe you learned as a child, right? And for many of us that can relate to that ambitiousness, for example, in my family, it was educational standards. Like I was basically mandated to go to university, and it was all about, getting good grades and doing that next thing and, getting the gold star. And so that push, that drive was wired into me as a child. And it's interesting, right? Because that goal-setting, ambitious quality, it's valuable and it's very highly regarded in life, right? In leadership, in the work environment, in the corporate environment, in entrepreneurship, if you happen to be one. So it's interesting, right? And so it can cause us to be constantly going and striving, which when that part of our brain that is responding to this external stressor or internal stressor and pressure is getting activated, it's also really causing us to maybe also get tripped up in perfectionism, self-doubt, self-critical thoughts, fear of failure, unrealistic standards that we have for ourselves. And so all of this can lead to that anxious response in our body and in our mind. And so when we have this really highly pressurized driving force within us that's always going after more, better, faster, let's go, and it's not done from a really centered and grounded, regulated place, it can cause us to experience even more anxiety and stress, especially if we are prone to that as another one of our patterns, right? And so again, it's really interesting to start to look at of how these gifts, and they are gifts, right? This gift for wanting more for yourself, being ambitious, needs to be monitored, regulated, right? So that it doesn't then lead to more anxiety, right? And so it's interesting because in the case of high functioning anxiety, where you are very driven, very much in action a lot of the time, have a hard time slowing down, are constantly, really highly attentive to detail, perfectionist. That is really interesting to look at, right? And a lot of us that experience high functioning anxiety, that drive is really like almost insatiable, right? And so it's really important to think about that, because that insatiable drive, that more push, 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 is it causing you to be afraid of making mistakes? Is it causing you to overthink everything? So it's like this entanglement of these patterns, right? And this response that we have that's hardwired in us as children, right? Of that, and maybe in your family it was similar, like you get good grades, you go to school, you work really hard, all of those things that, the high achieving mentality is woven into. But when we are active in that stress survival state, it's really important for us to recognize that this can really quickly lend to stuff like self-criticism, self-judgment, imposter syndrome. So these are all protective patterns, right? All protective patterns by the ego mind to keep us safe and to keep us, going with the flow of society, right? So if you think about it, that very much that goal-driven, action-oriented, pressurized external definition of success, which lends well to being a hyperachiever or a high achiever, is very stressful. And so if our pattern and our default is to experience stress, right, experience these pressures and go into anxiety as our internal situation that our nervous system responds with, can you see how this would feed itself, right? Can you see how it would on one side of the coin cause us to be really driven and taking action, but internally just spinning in the anxiety? And on the other side of the coin, if you were able to watch that desire and that drive to constantly be striving and be able to quiet your nervous system response and come back to a more regulated state, come back to that green zone in the middle where you're in your leadership energy, when you're in that sense of powerful presence, when you're experiencing that inner serenity that comes when you are truly grounded. And then you witnessed your capability for setting goals and being a dreamer and really putting yourself out there and taking action, but you did it from that regulated place. How much more aligned with you and the truth of who you are that would be. Because when we are in that state of really feeling like we have to continually prove ourselves and achieve these external achievements or, certifications or levels or scales or whatever it is, we tend to overcommit, right? We tend to overfunction. We tend to, give of ourselves in this really overdrawn sort of way. And then our nervous system just pays the price, right? And it tends to be the fuel, running on caffeine and cortisol, and being frantic and frazzled in anxiety overdrive. It tends to be the fuel for many of us. And that's not sustainable. And it sure ain't enjoyable, is it? Is it? And so, this is such an important thing for us to look at, because, again, when we are in this survival state, in these protective patterns, when we're in that chatter channel of our mind, just like constantly critiquing and overthinking and, perfectionizing to the nth degree and really taking on too much and overfunctioning and sacrificing our sanity, sacrificing our self-care, we tend to get really sensitive, right? And so many of us are really sensitive anyway. And so that's when when things don't go our way, or we make mistakes, and that's when it's just like fuel for the fire, right? Of the chatter channel in our head, like the self-criticism just because we're stressed, right? And we're already in that survival center of the brain. And it's just that critical voice of the mind just gets fuel for the fire. And then, of course, it just lends to more anxiety. It's like this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Can you see? I hope this is making sense. I really hope that this is making sense, because, this chronic stress that we're experiencing because of these patterns that, are hardwired in and they're subconscious. So we're just bringing awareness to it, right? And so, you know, it's really, again, that compassionate curiosity that's so important. And so what we're looking at is, okay, if this is the case for us and you're experiencing both hand in hand this high achieving drive and this goal driven, and you don't want to give that up, right? Like, I want you to go out there and do things and live your heart's passion and like go out there and be the badass, beautiful being that you are, but not at the expense of your happiness, not at the expense of your joy, not at the expense of who you truly are. If it's all run by that anxious drive, how can we begin to shift this pattern, right? And so this is an important question, is how can we begin to shift this pattern and come back to using this beautiful gift from a more aligned place, from a more centered place? And it's important to think about and to ask ourselves that. And that's where these tools, taking power pauses throughout the day so that you're not running on anxiety overdrive, right? You are grounded, you're centered. And that's where power pauses come in. And that's where all of these different beautiful routines and rituals that is the work that I do comes in, because we tend to sacrifice ourselves when we're under stress and when we're feeling anxious. It's our mind is already in that active state in the survival center of the brain. And so it wants to just perpetrate that pattern, but that's really key. We want to feel the feel of however it's presenting for you in that moment of like, just one more web page, just one more email, and that, like, you know the feeling. It's like the vice grip internally. It's like you're getting squeezed like a tube of toothpaste by that anxious feeling. So feel the feels. And that's why we take this beautiful multi-layered, multi-pronged, I want to think of a different analogy because pronged makes me think of something getting poked. But anyways, this multi-layered approach, right? Multifaceted, there we go. Multifaceted, like a diamond approach, because you're multifaceted, darling, especially if you're multi-passionate, especially if you have all these beautiful things that you love and look into and are into. And so that's where, traditional approaches oftentimes miss the mark, because it's just in the mind, right? It's just in the mind of like, therapy is very important. We want to process, we want to get clarity. Or are we missing out on it really anchoring into the body if we're just in the mind? Or if we're just doing, mindset work, like shifting your perspective and affirmations and journaling and stuff like that, we miss out again on the body. But if we are focused just on the body and just on, exercise for stress reduction, then again, we miss that other beautiful, subtle layer of the emotionality of you and the mental aspect of you and the spiritual aspect of you. And so, there's so many different facets to this approach and so many different tools in the toolbox, but it's really important to have a fully integrated approach to this, because you're not your mind, and you're not your body, you're more. You are this beautiful soul, you are this essence, you are this energetic spiritual being having a very physical experience, experiencing very physical realities of this life that we live in, right? Which is, you're out there making things happen. You got goals, you're doing things in your work. Maybe you're doing things in your business. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a leader, you're a community member. These are all very physical realities. But the being doing all the doing is the priority. And the being that has this tendency to be really ambitious and really passionate and really driven, it has needs. You have needs, right? You have needs. And those are physical needs, right? Your body, you're not a rock, right? Movement is such a powerful tool. You know this by now if you've listened to a few episodes, that movement is mind and body medicine. It's really important to be able to keep your energy, your prana flowing through your body, because, hey, you're probably sitting right now, aren't you? And we all spend a lot of time sitting. And so there's such beautiful benefits of movement as a practice. Mental, physical, spiritual, emotional benefits, right? We've talked about that in other episodes. You likely know that, but it's just a good reminder. And then emotionally, it's your energy. your emotions are energy in motion. And so we want to allow them to move. And that can be done through movement practices and dance and somatic work. But we also do that by talking. We also do that by expressing. We also do that by allowing yourself to feel them physically, somatically in your body. Mentally, it's so important to have clarity and community and connection so that you can really get what you need spiritually, and that's really coming back to people that get it, right? To be seen, to be witnessed. And so it's really important to remember that when you are connected to all of these different aspects of who you are giving yourself on this multifaceted, multi-layered, multi-dimensional, if you will, if you're into that sort of thing, approach. And that's really where the magic happens when it comes to tending to you, to yourself, as this beautiful being on all these levels and layers, having this very real physical experience that sometimes might include anxiety or depression. And so it's really important to embrace this comprehensive, holistic, integrated approach. And that's really the work that I do. And I'm working on something exciting to help you with that. So stay tuned, more information coming on that soon. So we have reached the part of our episode where we are going to take a power pause. And today we're going to do a 60-second nervous system reset that you can do anytime, anywhere, especially when you're feeling anxious or noticing that push, push, drive, drive, go, go, go energy that tends to come when you are very high achieving, ambitious, driven woman that is often feeling like you have to go for it. You want to just keep pushing through to avoid the feeling of anxiety, or you're running on that anxiety overdrive, that like, can't stop, won't stop, don't stop vibe. Okay. So trust me when I say that when you feel the feels of anxiety and you do this reset, it's so powerful, it's so effective, it's so efficient. And the interesting thing is, for many of us that are of this beautiful type of human, and I love and celebrate you, sometimes it's not enough to just do one thing to meditate. And I get it, right? I get it. Sometimes we need to be doing several things because your brain is like, what do you mean do one thing? I'm used to doing 5 different things very well. Or so it says. Multitasking is a facade. We'll talk about that another time. But the reality is it may not be enough for you to just breathe deeply. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to count the length of our breath on our fingers. Okay, I'm showing you so you can see me, but if you're on the audio, you can't see me. But hey, you can come over and do this with us on YouTube if you're a more visual learner, because this is over on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, this is part of a full episode about why high achieving women often experience anxiety. So here's what we're going to do. I would love for you to stand up if you can. If not, you can do seated. Okay, so I want you to first get grounded. If it's safe, you can close your eyes. Get grounded by anchoring down into your feet or your seat. And then as you breathe out, bring your awareness down deep into your belly and breathe out, pulling back through your abdominals, lifting through your pelvic floor, softening through your neck and shoulders. Inhale deeply, exhale again. So get connected to your core. Get connected to yourself in your body. And we're going to count with our fingers. So both hands, you're going to inhale for 4 counts. So use your thumb. Okay, so you're going to move your thumb and count on both hands. Ready? Inhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 4. 1, 2. From the belly, pelvic floor up. 4. Good. Inhale. Exhale. Pelvic floor, belly lifts, standing tall. Here we go. Inhale. Exhale. Lift, lift, stand tall. Try again. Inhale. Exhale. Shoulders relax. One more time. Exhale. Good. That, my beautiful friends, is a power pause. 60-second nervous system reset, combining grounding, combining core activation, combining breath, combining mudras, because you're using on your fingers, combining postural awareness. So yes, multi-layered, right? Because sometimes when you're experiencing anxiety and your brain is ping-ponging back and forth, the last thing you're capable of doing is getting it to be still, at least in my personal experience, from my lived experience. So giving it multiple things to do in order to experiencing that centering, that connectivity, will bring you to that place within yourself where you hopefully feel a little more grounded, a little more centered, where you're experiencing a little bit more serenity. Okay, so that's what it's all about. So that was a power pause. If you resonated with that and you love that, make sure to check out the anxiety and stress reset in the links below, because it's all about helping you to shift your inner state quickly by taking these power pauses. So that is in the show notes. So thank you so much. I really hope that this was a insightful episode, and if only gave you that sense of, wow, I am not alone in this. I experiencing some or all of what Megan is talking about. If you relate to this, if you feel this calling for a more holistic, integrative mind, body, spirit approach, you've tried the things, right? Like you've got the blue light blocker glasses, you're doing the breathing, you go to the yoga, you maybe take the microdose, you drink the mushroom coffee, like you're going to the therapist, you're doing all the things, and it's like, how do I make sense of all of this? It's common, right? And that mistake is that we dabble in all the things, but not enough of any of it for it to really make a difference, because it hasn't become part of who you are and how you show up for yourself, because you're driven and ambitious and you love to try new things, right? It's like, it's such an interesting double-edged sword, two sides of the same coin place to be, that I get it. I get it. Like I get it. Why do you think I'm a personal trainer and a yoga instructor, and I'm into the subconscious reprogramming? Because that's me too. So luckily, I've been able to weave all of this together, and that's the core of the work that I do, and that's the core of the flow framework that I'm going to be teaching in the next episode. So if this resonated with you, make sure to check out next week's episode, or if you're listening to this later, then go ahead and check out the next one, or go backwards if you happen to be listening to that one. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing in the world by being you, right? And that might show up professionally in the work that you do if you're a business owner, or professionally in how you show up in the workplace that you're part of, or your relationships or your family. But I know that at the core, really, truly what is so important, very likely to you, is to be yourself and to be witnessed and seen for all that you are. Because as someone who has these dreams and is, out there doing cool things in the world, you're a change maker, right? And whether you identify with being a change maker or a visionary or not, you're doing amazing things in the world just by being here. And if you're like, I want to be like that, and you're not kind of identifying with that yet, no worries. The beautiful thing is that you are co-creating your reality. You have things in your heart and that you've been called to do, or maybe you're uncovering them, or maybe even more so. Just know that this beautiful gift of humanity that you're experiencing as this beautiful being, having these moment-to-moment experiences, it's all there to teach us. It's all there to help us grow. And I know sometimes when you are in the anxiety tornado and the self-doubt is loud and the self-critical voice is screaming and it feels like there's no way out and you don't know up or down, I want you to know that these tools, these power pauses, this episode, this podcast are really here to be an anchor for you. And really through that recognition, and it's all comes back to self-awareness. Literally, that's the crux of all of it, is being compassionate with yourself and cultivating awareness in these moments and just witnessing these patterns and these tendencies and realizing that you are a powerful being and you get to create your future from this moment now. Cultivating this level of presence and inner centeredness so that you can really live from that place, you can move from that place, you can show up from that place because you're very powerful, and you're far more powerful than you give yourself credit for. And I am so grateful to be on this life journey with you. Reach out with any questions. Make sure to check out the Anxiety and Stress Reset in the comments or description below. And if you have any questions about anything that I shared, please reach out, and definitely make sure to check out next week's episode where we talk about the flow framework that helps you to integrate everything that we've been talking about here today. Sending you lots of love. Take good care. Bye-bye.